Good Shabbos, everyone. Whoa. What's going on there? How's that for a welcome back? Snap, crackle, and pop. Great to see all of you. I have no idea why it's doing that. Well, that'll certainly take care of it right there. Shabbat Shalom. Great to see you after a week away. Many thanks to Rabbi Klein for leading services last Friday. Hope you enjoyed that and brought back some fond memories. I'm Rabbi Matt Berger, joined with our soloist Allison Rosoff, and with a beautiful white and black hat, our accompanist at the piano, Joy Katzen-Guthrie. We are going to begin in our prayer books in the Kabbalat Shabbat, Welcoming Shabbat service. If you turn to page 10, you'll find the words to Hine Matov. We're going to be singing Ellen Allard's version of this song, How Good It Is. Tovu manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tovu manayim shevet achim gam yachad. How good it is to be together. Tovu manayim shevet achim gam yachad. How good it is to be together. How good it is to be together. Whoa, 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 whoa. Let's get in the mood to light those Shabbat candles by singing Debbie Friedman's Light These Lights. find the blessing on page 2. I'd like to share a poem with you by Zelda. Seems incredibly loud at this point. Looks like, nope, I'm back. I'm back in business. You can follow along right there. Zelda was a 20th century Israeli poet, actually married into the Schneerson family of rabbis, and one of her great poems was Light a Candle. Softly the Sabbath has plucked the sinking sun, slowly the Sabbath descends, the rose of heaven in her hand. How can the Sabbath plant a huge and shining flower in a blind and narrow heart? How can the Sabbath plant the bud of angels in a racing heart? Light a candle, drink wine. Slowly the Sabbath descends, and in her hand the flower, and in her hand the sinking sun. We'll continue on page 24. Here you'll find the words to Shalom Aleichem. Peace be to you, messengers of the Most High.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei HaSharet, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech, Malachei Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Malachem Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech, Malachei Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Barchuni leShalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech, Malachei Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Seitem leShalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech, Malachei Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Our words of praise and our segue to Shema and its blessings, the Chatzir Half Kaddish, found on page 26.
Yitkadav, Yitkadash, Shmei Rabbah, Bi'amad Yivrach Yutei, V'yamlich Malchutei, B'chayechon u'v'yamechon, u'v'chayei de kol Beit Yisrael, תשבריחו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה תמירה בעלמא ואמרו amen.
Let's rise now as we continue with a call to prayer, the Barhu on page 28. Please join me on 31. Praise are you, Adonai our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Baruch atah Adonai, Hama'ariv Aravim. And on 33, words of love, Ahavat Olam. Wisdom and wonder, passion and instruction, story and symbol. All these things your Torah gives to us. The more we devote ourselves to it, the more it grows and gives. What could be a truer token of your abiding love than this holiest of your works and the living language that gives it form? Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo. We'll sing Open Up Our Eyes together. Open up our eyes, teach us how to live, fill our hearts with joy and all the love you have to give. Gather us in peace as you lead us to your name, and we will know that you are one. Open up our eyes. Teach us how to live our hearts with joy and all the love you have to give. Gather us in peace as you lead us to your name, and we will know that you are one. And we will know Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuto Leolam Vaed. Feel free to be seated. Ed, can you come up here for a second? We'll continue now with the V'ahavta prayer. You shall love Adonai, your God, on page 36. Levadecha, Vishinantam levanecha, Vidibarta bam, Vishitecha bevetecha, Uvlechtecha vadere, Ushochmecha, Uvkumecha, Ukshartam leot ayadecha, Vihayu letotafot, Bein einecha, Uchtavtam zizot beitecha uvisharecha leman tizkeru vasitem et kol mitzvotai v'item kedoshim Elohechem Ani Adonai Elohechem Sherotzeti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem le'Elohim Ani Adonai Elohechem. Please join me on page 39, Emet Ve'emunah, Truth and Faith. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we are taught wherever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt. There is a better place, a promised land. The winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness. There is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together. Our Song of Freedom is found on page 40, Mi Chamocha. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai. Mi chamocha nedar ba'kodesh. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai. Mi chamocha nedar ba'kodesh norati lo hosefele norati lo hosefele Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai. Mi chamocha nedar ba'kodesh. Chamocha ba'elim Adonai. Adonai. Mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh, no ranzi lo, o sefele, no ranzi lo, o sefele. Continue with a prayer for shelter and protection, the words of Hashkivenu that you can find on page 42. Grant, O God, that we may lie down in peace. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu L'shalom, L'shalom. Hamidenu Shomreinu L'chayim. Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha, Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha. Amen. Shelter us between our wings, O Adonai. Guard us from all harmful things, O safe throughout the night, till we wake with morning's light. Teach us, God, wrong from right. Amen. Let's rise now for our standing prayers, the words of the Tefillah, thanking God for the generations before us, for our life, strength, and holiness, beginning on page 46.
Adonai sifat hatiftachu fi agida hilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, El Hagadol, Hagibor, Vahanora, Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Vekonei Hakol, V'zocher Chastei Avot V'imahot, U'mevig Ula Livnei V'neihem, Lema'an Shemo Be'yava, Melech Uzer U'Moshiach U'Magin, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, Vezra, Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechayei Hakol, Atah Rav L'Hoshia, Morid Hatal, Mechachel Chaim Bechesed, Mechayei Hakol Berachamim Rabim, Somech Novim Verofei Cholim, Umatir Asurim, Umechayem Emunato, Lishenei Yeshua v'ne'emanata l'chayot hakol Baruch atah Adonai mechayei hakol
Ata kadosh v'shim kakadosh u'kadoshim b'chol yom yalu chasela Baruch atah Adonai Ha'el HaKadosh. Feel free to be seated. You'll find the next few blessings beginning on page 55 with a prayer for the holiness of Shabbat. Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat. Prayer asking that God's presence always remain with us here in America, in Israel, and throughout the world. Baruch atah Adonai HaMachazir Shechinato Litzion. And for moments of gratitude, big and small, in our lives, we offer the words of thanks, Hoda'ah. Baruch atah Adonai Hatov Shimcha U'Chanaeh Lechodot. And first in English, and then followed by its singing in Hebrew, the words of Shalom Rav for peace on page 60. Grant abundant peace to Israel, your people forever, for you're the sovereign God of all peace. May it be pleasing to you to bless your people Israel in every season and moment with your peace. Blessed are you, Adonai, who blesses your people Israel with peace. Baruch atah Adonai, Hamvarech et amo Yisrael, B'Shalom.
Shalom Rav, Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Le'olam. Shalom Rav, Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Tahu melech Adon v'chol hashalom v'tov beinecha levarech et amcha Yisrael b'chol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. שלום רב, ישראל עמך, תשים לעולם. שלום רב, ישראל עמך, תשים לעולם.
You'll find our prayer of healing, Misha Berach, on page 253, as we call to mind and to heart members of our community and beyond for strength and courage. As we think of Jacqueline Albin, Penny Barna, Lori Bauk, Joanne Beeman Feidelman, Jonathan Riven Ben Rivka, Charlie Burke, Babs Brown, Tina Bruns, Janice Drenane, Stephen Drenane, Harry Fleisch, Denise Freifeld, Mitchell Freifeld, Sidel Freifeld, David Friedlander, Glenn Goldsmith, Eve Goldstein, Myron Graff, Don Hirschman, Kathleen Howard, Susan Lafer, Stephen Lieber, Ken Mercereau, Cole Montgomery, Michael Ranzino, Gary Rosenberg, Stephanie Ross, Dennis Schulman, Albert Schaefer, Angie Sermenis, Jeff Stark, and Marty Wassoff. And if there are other names to add.
My father, George Stark. Misheberach Avotenu Mikor HaBracha Limotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing,
And let us say, Amen. Misheberach imotenu mikor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us sing, Amen. Little Moishe woke up one morning with a start. He felt shooting pain coming from one of his teeth. He ran to his parents to tell them about this big toothache, but Moishe knew what was coming next, a trip to the dentist chair. His parents, being good parents, leapt into action. They immediately called the family dentist, Dr. Rosen, who found time in his busy schedule to squeeze Moishe in later that day. When they reached the office, Moishe was led to the examination room by a hygienist who said, "Why don't you take a seat in this chair, Moishe, and I'll recline it and make it more comfortable for you." Soon after, Dr. Rosen came in, said hello. He quickly assessed the situation and got to work, taking out one of those needles and injecting a numbing agent right around the bad tooth. Then he left the room for a few moments to let the medication take hold. When Dr. Rosen returned, Moishe was standing next to the tray that had all of the dental equipment on it. Somewhat surprised, Dr. Rosen asked, "So, little Moishe, what are you doing over there by those surgical instruments?" Focused deeply on his task, Moishe replied, "Oh, I'm just taking out the tools that I don't want to use." Sometimes in life, we don't like the reality that's before us. One day, it might be an aching tooth. Another day, it's bad news or stories that we read or hear about, whether from family or friends or the newspaper, online or in print. I'll admit that, like little Moishe, it is tempting to think that we can just remove or put aside what's bothering us. But as we well know, if there's a cavity in our mouth, we have to fix it, even if the tools are sharp and cause anxiety. I saw a couple people just when I was giving that joke, they were like squirming in the chair like I was there with the needle. So it is with the latest round of clashes in Israel and the West Bank during the past 2 weeks. We just can't, like that, wish away bad news. Thankfully, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, or matzav, the Israelis call it in Hebrew the situation, has for the time being abated. But history has shown us that this situation in this particular neck of the woods will continue to boil over now and again. The latest round of unrest began with the Shin Bet, the Israeli security agency, and Israeli border police entering the Jenin refugee camp in the West Bank. The goal was to root out Palestinian militants and terrorists after months of growing violence in the West Bank. Admittedly, this was the largest Israeli incursion in the West Bank since the Intifada in the early 2000s. After some preliminary drone strikes, armored vehicles rolled into the narrow streets and passageways of the refugee camp. All told, there were about 1,000 Israeli troops that were sent in. So things were bound to go downhill relatively quickly. At least 12 Palestinians and 1 Israeli soldier were killed in the first day of fighting, with thousands fleeing their home in the refugee camp. As if on cue, Palestinians responded with terror the very next day. In South Tel Aviv, 8 Israelis were injured in an in-car ramming and stabbing attack. A courageous and quick-thinking Israeli neutralized the terrorist. Unfortunately, this tit-for-tat escalation continued on for days, and worse still, some of the violence was perpetrated by Jewish settlers who live in the West Bank. When it comes to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, most people would prefer a diplomatic solution to this ongoing issue, which has its roots all the way back to the Arab-Israeli War of 1948. And while the Oslo Accords in the early 90s offered a degree of hope regarding an eventual two-state solution, this likely won't happen anytime soon. So here we are. Honestly, I believe the vast majority of Israelis serving in the Israeli Defense Forces, Shin Bet, Border Patrol, or police are just trying to do their jobs and keep violence to a minimum. To be sure, the West Bank is an incredibly challenging environment to work in. In many ways, it's a powder keg. And while there may be some bad apples mixed among the good, the overarching Jewish value of shalom, or keeping the peace, has always been the primary mission and goal of Israel. Without a doubt, most Palestinians too want peace. But as we know, among them there are terrorists who believe that's the only way going forward. Theirs is the language of zealotry and fanaticism. Among the Jewish settlers, some do meet violence with violence, even if this is what our tradition tells us not to do. Then again, there are stories in our tradition, in the Torah and the Hebrew Bible, about zealots and fanatics that have gone too far. And as I shared in my message to the congregation yesterday, there's one instance that truly stands out. But first, a word about fanaticism. There's a fine line between being a fan and being a fanatic. All of us are fans of something. Maybe it's a musical group like the Beatles. Maybe it's a favorite city like Miami, New York, or Tel Aviv. Maybe you like a particular author like Ernest Hemingway. I say Ernest Hemingway because my family recently visited Key West and toured the writer's home there, and we learned a lot more about his life and his proclivities outside of the world of literature. A very interesting human being. You should also know that the word fan is a short version of the word fanatic, meaning, and this is just one definition I got, a person who's filled with excessive and single-minded zeal, especially for an extreme religious or particular cause, political cause. So somewhere along the line, between being a fan and being a fanatic, things can definitely go awry. This pretty much describes a guy named Pinchas, who has this week's Torah portion named after him in the book of Numbers. There he is. So this opens with a very, very disturbing tale of Pinchas, who literally takes justice into his own hands, as you can see with that sharp spear, killing two individuals involved in what the Torah describes as improper sexual relations. Though, strangely enough, God actually rewards Pinchas's commitment to morality with a special covenant called a Brit Shalom, or a covenant of peace. So how could this be? Go back. There you go. So this is Pinchas in action, yet God rewards him with a Brit Shalom, or a covenant of peace. But regarding this particular covenant of peace, there's a lot more to the story at first glance, because what first seems pretty straightforward, God gives an individual a covenant of peace, that's a pretty good thing. This one has a twist, or, as you'll now see, a broken letter. So there's a bunch of Hebrew in there, but take a look at the word in the center of the screen. You've got 4 letters going from right to left, a shin, a lamed, a strange vav, and a mem sofit, or a final mem. So if you look at that vav, usually a vav is straight up and down with a flag going to the left. This is bent, crooked, and pretty much almost split down the middle. Together, the word spells shalom, whether it's a regular vav, or in this case, a broken, bent, or crooked vav. But this is no scribal error. Every single sofer or soferet, every single Torah scribe who writes the Torah and writes this part of the Parsha of Pinchas has to write the vav in exactly this way. And it's based on a teaching by a rabbi named Yom Tov of Spain, who lived in the 13th century. Various opinions have been offered about this crooked, bent, or broken vav. The one I like best teaches that the vav is broken, bent, or angled because Pinchas's Brit Shalom, this covenant of peace, was never fully complete. Meaning that even though he followed the letter of the law, the way he went about it through vigilante justice and being judge, jury, and executioner was patently wrong. It's all good and well to be enthusiastic and put some heart and soul behind something we like doing, whether we're doing something at home, with our kids, grandkids, whether we're at work, whether we're learning a new skill or trying something new on guitar, or whether we're advocating for someone or something that we believe in. But it's definitely possible to cross the line between being a fan, someone in favor of something, and a fanatic, someone who goes overboard. It's been said in various articles and rabbis' commentaries over the centuries that Pinchas's fanaticism has inspired Jewish zealots over time. The first instance that people point to are the Maccabees. Long ago, we know these brave Jewish fighters in the Hanukkah story that comes from the first and second book of Maccabees, which is not in the Hebrew Bible, but in a section called the Apocrypha, or the non-canonical books of the Bible. They're called the Hammers, from Modi'in, which is a city about halfway between Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. Well, they miraculously held back the Syrian Greek army and ultimately rededicated the seven-branch menorah in temple. This is the Hanukkah story. Throughout his life, the leader, Mattathias, or Mattatyahu, told his followers to continue the fight for liberation and Jewish religious freedom. But in the fine print in the book of Maccabees, we also read that he tells his sons, Judas and others, to exact revenge against those who treated the Israelites harshly. Pincus's zealotry may well also be the inspiration for Jewish settlers who continue to choose violence over peace in the West Bank. In the past 2 weeks alone, there have been numerous instances of arson, vengeance killings, an attempt to retake settlements that were even considered illegal by the Israeli government. To my mind, this is the very definition of the bent, broken, or crooked vav as part of the covenant of peace, or shalom. Israel is our Jewish homeland. All of us love Israel. In many ways, she is, as Abraham Heschel once said, an echo of eternity. There are many places in the world that long for peace, like Ukraine. But God has specifically promised peace that it will one day prevail in Jerusalem and throughout the Holy Land of Israel. I hope that at some point in the future we'll experience, and Israel will experience, a true and complete shalom with an upright vav standing proud and tall for all those who live in Israel, the West Bank, and all those who visit our Holy Land. Shabbat Shalom. We're going to continue with the Aleinu, the adoration, that you'll find on page 282. Please rise as we open the ark.
משפחת הרמה שלא שם חלקנו כהם וגור עלינו ככל המונם ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני נלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו
Feel free to be seated. You'll find the words to Kadishaton, the Mourner's Kaddish, words of praise, on page 294. As we think of families in the period of Shloshim, the first 30 days, mourning their loved one, remember fondly Ellen Kolodner, wife of Harry Kolodner, Stanley Rosenblatt, uncle of Irene Lipensky and Susan Satinoff, Marcia Goldstein, wife of Gary Goldstein, and the recent passing of Jody Kaplan. To these names, we add and mark the yahrzeit anniversary of passing of loved ones. On this Shabbat, we remember with affection the following individuals: Morris Brand, Fritzy Cohen, Molly Cohen, Benjamin Dorman, Toby Dorman, Sylvia Eisner, Leo Fish, Mark Friedman, Eugene Gorlick, Jack Itzkowitz, Sylvia Karp, Ruth Killen, Sylvia Klein, Sidney Quall, Henny Levy, Phil Lowell, Clara Markowitz, Grauman Marks, Raymond Naderman, Richard Sherman, Stanley Silverstein, Irving Smolensky, Pauline Unger, and Joanne White. Are there any other names to add for yahrzeit? Thank you. We say Zichronam Livracha. May the memories of all of these good people continue to be a source of blessing in their loved ones' lives as we rise to offer the words of Kaddish praise together. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, Bialma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon v'yomechon uv'chayei dekol beit Yisrael, ba'agala v'isman kariv imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mivarach le'alam ulamei almayah, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitzramam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal, Shemei Dekudasha B'rihu, La'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, damiran bi'alma v'imru, amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, amen. Osei shalom v'imramav, hu yasei shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, amen. May the one who causes peace in the heavens cause peace to descend on us, Israel, Ukraine, and throughout the world, as we say, amen. Feel free to be seated. You'll find the Shabbat Kiddush on page 5, also on the screens behind me, for the fruit of the vine. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri agafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho v'ava uvratzon hinkilanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit Hu yom tekilah l'migrae kodesh zecher l'tziat mitzrayim kivanu v'charta v'yotanu kidasha mikol amin Shabbat Tocheka V'Hava Uvratzon Hichaltanu Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat. L'chaim, to life. Kids in the crowd, Avi, come on up. There are two others. My daughter may tell us here somewhere. And there's one more as well. All right, join us in the Motzi blessing over the bread. Motzi lechem min haaretz. We give thanks to God for bread. Our voices rise in song together as our joyful prayer is said. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Tevon, enjoy. Well, all right, this evening, pleasure to call forward Paul Rosoff, new president of our congregation. She'll be sharing some Shabbat announcements with us.
Thank you. Shabbat Shalom, everybody here and at home. Many thanks to Rabbi Matt, Allison, and Joy for leading us in a wonderful Shabbat service, along with our tech team, Sophia Shane, and it's not Bruce Lowett, it's Mike Skepka. Sisterhood's annual honey fundraiser is now open. This 8-ounce jar of honey is the perfect way to wish someone a sweet and healthy new year. Information on how to order can be found in tonight's announcement booklet and on the Sisterhood page on our website, ahavatshalom.org. And I can tell you that I've been doing this for years, and the recipients just love it. It's a very cute little bottle of honey. It comes in its own cardboard box with a New Year's greeting. So it's a beautiful way to wish your friends and family out of town, or even locally, a Happy New Year. Our next book club meeting, sponsored by Brotherhood, will be on Sunday, July 23rd at 10:30 a.m. with a bagel breakfast. An informational meeting for our June 2024 trip to Israel will take place the evening of August 26th with refreshments and a Havdalah service. Following the service, please join us for refreshments at our Onik Shabbat in the social hall. Once again, Shabbat Shalom to all.
Thank you so much, Paula, sharing those announcements. And our closing song, you'll find right there on the screen, Hava Nashira, Shir, Hallelujah. Come, let us sing a song of praise. Hava, Hava Nashira, Hallelujah, Shir, Hallelujah, Hava, Hava Nashira, Shir, Hallelujah, Shir, Hallelujah, Hava, Hava Nashira, Shir, Hallelujah, Shir, Hallelujah, Hava, Hava Nashira, Shir, Hallelujah, Shir, Hallelujah. Shabbat Shalom, one and all. Thank you so much for coming here in the sanctuary, and Shabbat Shalom to all of you watching from at home. Until next Friday.